Hey, Tim, how are you now?
I am just fine. Yourself?
I'm great, thanks. Hey, why don't you introduce yourself to the folks?
Will do. My name is Timothy Tucker. I come from Alaska and I currently live in Taichung, Taiwan. How about you?
My name is Ben Greenspoon. I'm from Northern Ontario, Canada, and I live in Kaohsiung, Taiwan.
All right. And what brought you to Taiwan, Ben?
Oh man, this is a long story. I'll try and keep it as short as possible. I left Canada in 2004, January 11th, I believe it was. Um, I wanted to do some traveling around Southeast Asia, do some teaching and traveling. That was a thing to do at the time, and I had sort of left my job to travel, just to go and explore the world and see what was out there. And when I arrived in Taiwan, I was really quick. I really fell in love with this place, and I've sort of been here ever since. Haven't looked back at all. What brought you here?
Also long story, but of course I'll make it short. After I graduated with a nice physics degree, uh, couldn't find a job in the field, couldn't get into graduate schools. So my buddy who lived in Taiwan at that time, he said, "You can live and teach here." And I'm like, "You're crazy." 6 weeks later, I was here with my passport, my backpack, and my shitty haircut, and started teaching at his school. And that was almost 11 years ago. And much like you, it's like, why are you still in Taiwan? It's like, give me a reason to leave. I love this
Yeah,
place. Life
yeah.
is comfortable. It's fun. It's great. Like
Hmm.
you made people from all over the world. It's just a lovely place that you fall in love with.
Yeah, man, it's great
Um,
here.
now in that time, Ben, we found out that we were both big fans of a thing called Critical Role.
That's right. That's
And that
right.
was through a mutual friend of ours when I was
Mhm.
down in your neck of the woods, down in Kaohsiung. We were
That's right.
both playing the same show.
Yep.
And
At
if I,
Rocks, at
at,
the at our one of our favorite places, the event live music venues, Rocks.
yeah, one of my favorites too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, you left kind of early that night, but then
Yeah.
I started talking with your bassist, our mutual friend. He was your bassist,
Hmm.
right? Yeah.
Hmm. He
Okay.
was.
Making sure I
Yeah.
get that right.
Yep.
If he's watching, I got you, buddy. Um, and him and I ended up talking the night away about Critical Role. I'm not really sure how it came up, but then so we talked about it all night, and then
Yep.
I don't know. Did he
Well,
tell me that night if you were a critter?
no, he told me the few days later that you were a huge Critical Role fan, and I was
Okay.
blown away. I was like, wait, there's more of this out there. I
Right.
can't I can't believe that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So
All right,
so yeah.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Mhm, mhm.
All right, so that's how we found out that we were critters. Because you
That's
sent me
right.
a message later saying like, "Hey, this is a long time coming, but you're a critter too, right?"
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
etc. And then we started talking.
Yeah, back and
So
forth, lots of back and forths.
yeah, so we'll get into that. So,
Mhm.
but first, let me ask you, what exactly are we doing here, Ben? So, like, why is this not a phone call? Why is this like on the internet for everybody to see?
Yeah, we're on the internet. Yeah, like I mean, it's a long story. I mean, but I think before we actually get into that, we should go back a quick minute and maybe explain to the folks what Critical Role is. In a
Sure.
nutshell, Critical Role is a bunch of nerdy ass voice actors sitting around playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's a group of folks in California. They they started out playing, maybe I'm going to say 6 7 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago. Started playing Dungeons and Dragons together, and a friend of theirs told them that, hey, I think you guys have some chemistry here. You should put this on the internet. And
Right.
if I remember my history well, which I often don't,
Mhm.
but if I do remember it well, they laughed at her and they said, "Oh, I don't think so." But she convinced them to, and they suddenly were live streaming their Dungeons and Dragons sessions on Twitch.
Mm.
Now they stream in front of audiences, live audience. Well, they used to stream in front of live audiences, 50,000 people. 50,000 subscribers on Twitch and YouTube. Several million people watch their VODs on YouTube and Twitch. It's a global phenomenon. That's just those numbers are just in the States too. There are huge numbers all around the world. These people they love Dungeons and Dragons, and they're professional voice actors. So they sit at a table and they act all of these huge, larger than life personalities while playing a game that we love, Dungeons and Dragons. It's
Hmm.
it's phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like we talked about Critical Role a fair bit, but I should ask you, how did you first get into Critical Role?
All
What
right,
got
yeah.
you involved?
Let's cover that. Yeah. I've been a video gamer like my whole life. When I was just old enough to walk, I still had a pacifier in my mouth. I was watching my grandmother and my older brothers play video games, and that was my role. That was my niche. Because I was the youngest. So when there were two controllers, my brothers played and I watched. But I enjoyed it. I'm just sitting there just
Sure.
watching them play these like Smurfs and Atari games and stuff like that. And then grandma got a Nintendo and I just watched her play all the time. I think she must have probably been like, you want to try? And I'm like, no, I just watch, And then one of those days I picked up a controller myself and started playing. Okay, but that's backstory. And then jump to the future a bit. I found out about Twitch, where they,
Right.
people live stream their video games, and it's just perfect for me. I love to watch people play games. I love to, I'm a spectator at heart, especially with games.
Sure.
So I watching Twitch all the time, have it up like every day, just watching, while I'm marking papers at work, or just like when I get home, like I'll be playing something here and watching something there. And one of these days I saw a recommended channel or something like that, Geek and Sundry, came up. And I didn't know what it was, so I clicked on it, and it looked like I recognized it as a game of D&D. I could see the like there were like 6 or 7 characters at that time, maybe actually 8 with Archon the Cruel,
and a couple of others, because they had several guests at that
yeah,
final
that's right.
battle.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
There was a bunch of in and outs at that. Yeah, they came in, they left. Yeah,
no, that was a long one. Oh yeah, we'll talk about that later too.
So
I checked it out, and I was like, I recognized it as D&D, and I'm like, who the fuck would watch this? And this is somebody who's like a serial spectator of games, so I'm like, I'm watching video games, and then like I click on this, like, what the fuck is this? Like, who would watch a private game of D&D? Like, I get it if you're a player, or like one of their friends, and if you know them, and like, what the fuck? So I just kind of left it, but then it kept on popping up, and like it must have been the viewer count. That might have been what it is. I'm seeing like thousands and thousands of people watching this thing,
literally thousands of people.
Yeah, and it shows you that count before you click on it. So I'm like, so I keep checking it out a little bit, and I'm watching different parts of the same episode. They were rerunning this episode nonstop. It's a very important episode, and you'll either know about it soon, or you already know about it, and we'll probably mention it a number of times during this podcast when we get started. So I'm watching different sections of it because it's different times in the episode, and I'm starting to get to know these people a little bit. Oh yeah, and I recognized Ashley Johnson from like movies and stuff like that,
right?
And
from Growing Pains, I bet, right?
Yeah, from movies and stuff. I just remembered her voice, she had that kind of nasally voice,
That's right.
And I think this was before The Last of Us came out. So I don't think
well before that,
right? Okay.
Yeah.
But I recognized her, and I'm like, dude, she's famous. So I was like, what is this famous person doing playing D&D? It was still back in those days when you don't expect people to, own up to playing D&D. So I started clicking on it more, and I started watching it more, and just like slowly, as Critical Role does, I started kind of falling in love with it, and I didn't realize it was happening. And then so long story short, again, like I started learning that they started airing their campaign at some point, and I was like, okay, let me check out those early episodes. I just started watching it, and I got involved. These nerdy ass voice actors sitting around playing Dungeons and Dragons turned out to be a really fantastic podcast to listen to when I'm walking around everywhere here in Taiwan. So I just started watching those things, heard about campaign 2 starting up, and so I'm just like watching these, catch the new episode, watch the old episodes, catching up to finally the goal. I was like, oh, one of these days I'll recognize this part, because I remember seeing it like episode 114. And that was I was waiting for that whole time. And then that's what I listened to, like time and time again. Every walk I go on, unless there's a new album I got to check out, it's Critical Role all the time. Any moment I get, I'm taking a break.
Very
from
familiar
it right
story.
Yeah, pretty similar, right? So fell in love with it, and started watching campaign 2, and that's where I am at this point. So how about you? Tell us your story.
again, it's a very familiar, it's a very similar story. It's everything you said sounds very familiar, except for maybe the beginning of it. For me, it starts when I was about, maybe I'll go right back to like my backstory.
Sure.
It goes back to when I was probably about 10 or 11 years old, when one of my best friends pulled out this box, this red box, and was like, here, let's check out this new game that I found and I've got in. It had these crazy dice, and it had this picture of a dragon, a red dragon on the front of it. And I loved Tolkien. I'd read Tolkien at that point and thought that this would be amazing. I was deep into fantasy novels myself. And suddenly I was like immersed in this game. That was second edition Dungeons and Dragons. That's where I started, way back in the day. In the 80s. Yeah. And then I played pretty regularly through those early years into high school, well into high school. Didn't play much I took a long break through school and university and after that. But then when I moved to Taiwan in the early 2000s, I hooked up with a group of expats here that played. It came up in conversation about Dungeons and Dragons. And I was sort of blown away. I was like, oh, wow, these guys play D&D. That's cool. I'd like to play. And so I sort of got involved with the table, and we were playing 3.5 at the time, which I had never played before. It was sort of new to me. And so I was like, but I played D&D. So it wasn't that far of a stretch. We played for a few years, I think, doing different guys, in the expat community. People come, people go, they leave, and we would play regularly whenever we could find time. We did a brief foray into fourth edition, which I will never talk about again. And then
Forbidden Edition.
Yeah, the one that one.
And then into at some point.
And then moving into Pathfinder. Pathfinder, which I'm still playing to this day. But it was during a campaign of a Pathfinder campaign that we were playing. One of the guys that I play with, he mentioned to us at the table that there was this live streaming D&D show with these professional actors, and we should check it out. So I did. I turned it on and I watched it, and I looked at it and I was like, I don't care for this very much. This isn't my jam. It's a bunch of nerds playing D&D, and I'm not super into it, but there was something there. So I went back and I watched a little clip here, a little clip there. And I was sort of like piecing it together and watching them do their thing. And these are professional voice actors. So watching them put their stamp and their mark on these actors, these characters, these actors putting their mark on these characters and bringing these huge personalities to life, there was something very, very special about it. The chemistry that they have.
Did you know that they were professional actors when you?
Yeah, I did.
It?
Yes,
okay.
I did. I realized, I was like, wait a minute, there is something here. And so I started watching more and more and more. And that was I've sort of gone back. I kind of remember the history a little bit. That was mid 2017. And I kept watching it. And I went back and I'm like, well, like you should. I'm going to go back and I'm going to start at the very beginning and watch these very first episodes. So I went back and I started watching, and we know that those episodes are 3.5, 4, sometimes 5 hours long. The big ones get even longer, but there's only a few of them, thankfully. But there's campaign 1 is 115 episodes.
15, yeah.
So it's like, 115 episodes, and it's a lot of viewing. That's a lot of viewing, but I was game for it. I started watching it. And then all of a sudden 2018 turns up and they're starting campaign 2. And that's when I was properly hooked. Campaign 2, I realized, I was like, wait a minute, these guys are taking this very seriously. This is really a thing that's happening. And so I need to be paying attention now. And so for me, it turned into a real obsession. I was finishing campaign 1. And while I was watching campaign 2 live happening, so every week I was watching an episode of campaign 2, and in between that was watching the reruns of campaign 1.
Same.
It's just hundreds and hundreds of hours. And I mean,
of entertainment, good entertainment. Yeah.
Real good entertainment. And what was fascinating for me as a player was that I'd never played 5th edition before. And so this to me was my first introduction to what has become the most popular edition of Dungeons and Dragons. And in my humble opinion, the best edition of Dungeons and Dragons. It really suits its combat economy, which is great because a lot of the other versions, the other editions don't address that very well. But it really opens the table up for role playing, which these these actors, these professional voice actors, take full advantage of, and they really turn it into something special. And watching them play and them being masters of their craft has translated to my own personal journey, like becoming a better player,
Nice.
becoming more confident in my gaming ability, my sitting down at a table with my friends and playing Dungeons and Dragons, and actually being a better player, a better listener, a better role player, better at almost everything. And something that I never thought I would admit, I'm actually going to be sitting down and DMing a brand new campaign for a group of brand new players.
Nice.
Somehow I tricked a bunch of newbies in Kaohsiung who are probably watching, so I won't be talking about their campaign at all.
Yeah, that's one thing we can't talk about, right?
Yeah, I will be tricking them and getting them to sit down at the table with me. And I'm taking that big step, as Matt always says. It's not that big of a step. You can do it. Just you do your best, and whatever he always says to
Have
new
fun.
DMs.
Yeah.
So have fun with it. Yeah.
Have fun. Make mistakes. It's cool.
Yeah. Have fun, make mistakes. And that's what I'm going to be doing. So, I mean, Critical Role has improved so many parts. I know it's cliche to say that it's improved so many parts of my life, but it hasn't. It's just made me a better player. It's made me better at D&D. It's made me realize a lot of things too, with a lot of the sort of things that are happening in the world. With, I'm not going to get political or anything, because I don't think this is the place for it, but it's really opened my mind up and let me sort of explore new ideas and new things, which is great. That's what we're all here for, right? So Critical Role has sort of done a lot of things for me, I think, in the peripheral, as a game, as just a game that people are sitting around watching and participating in and being part of, because there is a name for people like us.
And that name,
what do they call us, Tim?
For anybody into Critical Role, there's a name for us, and we are called Critters, as you might know from the name of the episode. What is that up here, down here? Wherever we want, right? Yeah, we're called Critters.
Yeah.
Aptly, Critical Role, Critters. And what is a critter? To put it very simply, a critter is a fan of Critical Role, if you want to be extremely basic about it, but that's simple. Extremely basic. It's like you had said earlier, it's like a very healthy obsession, because like I put so many hundreds of hours into watching this show, and it's wonderful. It's just a wonderful piece of entertainment that I have in my daily life. It's wonderful. But I feel like it's not that simple. You can get deeper if you want to. And I give all the credit to Critical Role. I will gladly and openly tell people that I'm a critter. I will tell people openly, it's like, yeah, I'm a fan of Critical Role. I watch it every day. I love that. I love that game. I love that show. It gives me an opportunity for one to talk about it with somebody who may not know. And also, Critical Role gets the credit, in my opinion, for bringing D&D out of the basement and kind of into the spotlight.
I know.
There are hundreds of thousands, millions, perhaps, people out there who have played D&D like their whole life, or just started or something, but they always kind of kept it hidden. And then Critical Role comes around, and like people enjoy calling themselves a critter because you can meet like-minded people.
I know all about it, man. I know all about it. I lived it in the 80s. I mean, it was the satanic panic of the 80s. It was a thing. We had to keep it hidden. I didn't tell many people that I grew up in rural northern Canada. I mean, not super northern Canada, but northern enough. It was rural, and it was not looked kindly upon. It was, you weren't supposed to be playing this game. You were, it was, I didn't tell people about it. I was not ashamed of it, but I was like, I don't want to start conflict. I don't want there to be trouble. So I'm not going to say anything. Like, if people found out, they found out. I wasn't going to deny it, but it was definitely a thing that we kept hidden. We didn't tell people about it. I mean, it was just a thing. I mean, luckily I had very open-minded parents that didn't really mind very much. They looked at it and they said, "Oh, well, they're using their imagination to play a game. That we were just kids. It's like they're not harming anything." They looked at the game and like, "Oh no, it's just an imagination
pretend.
Game. They're just sitting and it's pretend. It's make believe." I mean, we're adults playing make believe. Well, we are now, but it's a role playing game. It's fun, and there's nothing inherently evil about it, unless, like anything, if you want to make it that way, you can. It's totally up to you.
I don't see how the two are connected. I really don't get it.
I know it's very strange. People, there are very strange people in this world, but so be it. Yeah, it's just, like you said, they took it. Critical Role really grasped this game. I mean, they were gamers. They loved this game. A few of them at the table had been playing their whole life, and they brought their friends into this game that they loved, and now they love it. And they brought literally, you were right, millions. The last I read, which is a couple of years ago, there are 50 million new Dungeons and Dragons players in North America alone. 50 million. That's a huge number.
That's insane.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's a huge number that are people that are playing this game now. And when I was I could never have imagined that. I thought this was a game that was just a game. It was just I mean, if Gygax and Anderson were alive right now and they could see what's happening, I'm sure they would be equally amazed to know that this game that they invented in Wisconsin would be a thing. It's crazy.
They'd be so blown away. They'd be so proud and happy, with the people of the world. I was going to say the youth, but no, it's just across the spectrum. It's just like across the spectrum. I play too.
Yep. Yep.
And that's another point. I've never played D&D, but I'm such a huge fan.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to change that. You're going to sit down at my table at some point in the future, and you're going to be rolling those shiny dice of yours.
I am ready. Yeah, you know what I got.
I know what you got. I know
you see that. You see that logo. Can you read that?
Yeah. They're dying to be rolled, man. I know they want to be rolled.
They smell like failure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. All right, so I think we've established pretty well what Critical Role is and what a critter is. So I think I can ask you again, Ben, what would you say we're doing here?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, what are we doing here? So the bottom line is we're critters. We're in Taiwan. We are Critters in Taiwan.
Here we are.
We didn't know that that we existed. I didn't know there were other critters in Taiwan. So we're going to be sitting down here every week. We're going to try and sit down here every week.
That's the goal.
And have a conversation. We're going to be discussing all things Critical Role, past, present, future. We're going to be talking about everything. So be warned, there will be spoilers.
All
and this
spoilers.
Will be R-rated. Yeah, there will be spoilers. We're talking about everything. We're going to be talking about all the Critical Role universe, which is everything, the campaigns, the side projects, all of the different things that are CR related. So buckle up and join us, because this is going to be a weekly podcast, and we are going to be talking about everything Critical Role related. We're going to judge them. We're going to laugh at them. We're going to laugh with them. We're going to be trying to look at parallels with Sam's old characters and his new character that Liam is making him choose. Apparently, we're going to do
three campaigns in a row.
3 campaigns in a row. That's right. So we're going to be laughing at the. I mean, we know who the big Matt Mercer's big NPC from campaign 1 was. We know who his big NPC from campaign 2 is. It's going to be a game to try and figure out who his big NPC from campaign 3 will be, and how they're going to join the party. Oh, I've been thinking about everything, man, because campaign 3 starts in 12 days.
Dude, 12 it's so days, soon.
Man. It's less than 2 weeks. So we're going to be watching it live together. You're actually coming down here to join me. And we're gonna sit in front of this majestic TV, and we're gonna watch the entire thing. And I'm sure it's going to be a 3.5, 4 hour episode. It's going to take us 6 hours to get through, but we're going to do it, and it's going to be fun.
Do you think they already have like an intro animation or something?
I'm sure they have. I'm sure they have everything. I'm sure
I saw that on a little bingo sheet, and I'm like, I saw that. I'm like, oh, good point. Like that maybe a new song and everything.
They're not going to be messing around. They were figuring things out the first campaign. They were sliding into home plate on campaign 2. They're full on immersed into the game. They've got everything under control here.
Yeah, they're well practiced. They're a well-oiled machine right now. That's like a proper business model that they're doing now.
Sure.
It's going to be
glorious. It's going to be glorious. It's going to be glorious.
I can't wait, dude. That's so soon. 12 days. I think I've learned about that. I think you told me, you're like, dude, check the state of the roll. I think that was only like 2 weeks ago. And I'm like,
October 23rd.
I know
it's so fast, man. It's so soon. It is October. Sorry, October 21st, which is October 21st, which is October 22nd here. So we will be watching it. We will be watching it October 22nd.
Yeah, that night.
I'm very, very excited, man. I'm very excited.
I can get there. Yeah, dude, I can't wait. It's like I remember I wasn't super excited for campaign 2, because I was just like, I was balls deep in campaign 1, and they're like, oh, we're starting a new campaign. I'm like, okay. So I had to get out of that mindset and get into campaign 2. And yeah, we've talked about it before, but I was like, it seems a little forced. I was dead wrong. It was not forced at all. It was so natural.
It was
just
natural.
me being like getting into this and then starting this.
And
I'm like,
we're going to be saying the same thing about campaign 3. We're going to be like, oh, I can't believe the accents they're doing. I can't believe, no, he's not playing a warlock. He was supposed to play a bard. No. And there's going to be a whole lot of debate for those first couple of shows. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of confusion about what's happening. And they've said there's going to be some confusion, that we should throw some expectations out. So that's also going to be very exciting. I think it's going to be great. So, hey, listen, man, we've talked a lot here. Should we try and wrap this up maybe?
Sure. Let me say
what else
real
do
quick,
you got to say?
I've got one more thing. I've got the mission statement.
Right. We have one of those. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of floofy, whatever. But our mission statement is basically to not offer, give the opportunity to anybody else out there that feels like we did before we met each other. Before we learned that we were critters. I was just like watching this stuff on my balcony, just sipping at beers and whiskey, just celebrating by myself. I'm out there laughing and crying, just like no one to talk to. And then I got this old Ben who's like, hey, I'm a critter too. Send me messages all the time, thoughts, theories, criticisms, things that were funny, things, everything. And I'm just like, and then we decided to do this. The mission statement is pretty simple. We would like to be here just in case there's somebody else out there that was like us before we met each other, so that you're not alone. I don't want to steal the tagline from our buddies' things, like you are never alone.
You're never alone.
But like we are here.
Shout out to Hackstrong.
Yeah, there you go. And if you are a critter in Taiwan too, or anywhere else in the world, we're right here, and we're going to be doing this every week. So the mission statement is, we want to offer the same thing to you that we offered to each other. That's why. If you're out there, a phone call.
That's right. If you're out there and you're watching this, you're paying attention, and you're a fan of Critical Role, you're not even sure if you're a critter. Maybe you're a critter. Maybe you're not sure. You're like, oh, there's a name. Am I a critter? If you like Critical Role as much as we do, you probably are.
Yeah, and I can guarantee it, kind of.
If you like it, hey, get in touch with us. We've got an email address down. It's down there. Sure.
I think somewhere. It'll be down here somewhere. It could be anywhere.
It's around here somewhere. I think it's CrittersInTaiwan@gmail.com. So we'll post it somewhere down below, and please get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. If you just want to have a chat about Critical Role, and you want to send us some questions to ask, and you've got, hey, what did you think about this, and what did you think about that? And if you want to chat with us anytime, we're here. That's what we're doing. We want if we're Critters in Taiwan, and there's a chance you might be a critter in Taiwan as well. So please join us on this journey.
I mean, we have no shortage of things to discuss Critical Role related. This thing is just kind of full of it. But questions and anything about any spinoff, the whole universe of Critical Role, just send an email. We'll check it out, and we'll probably bring it up in our casts in the future.
That's right. For sure. Okay, so I think that's it. I think we've covered everything. We talked about Critical Role. We talked about critters. We talked about our history with all this stuff, why we're even doing this, and what our mission is, what we want to do, what we want to accomplish about this. So let's wrap this up.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, cool. Tim, have a great night, bud.
Hey, you too, man. We'll see you next week, if not sooner.
Yeah, if not sooner. All right, man. Peace.